Thank you for joining us. Thank you to Jazzy for hosting. Where are you? Thank you for hosting in your beautiful home, this wonderful neighborhood. Today marks the 7th stop on our Price of Poor Leadership Tour. We're doing this across the Commonwealth, and the goal of it is to just underscore how the failed Biden-Harris-Casey agenda has hurt Pennsylvania families. It's hurt small businesses. It's hurt seniors on fixed income, farmers. The list goes on and on and on. And because of this weak leadership, Pennsylvania families and small businesses are hurting. They're getting squeezed. And we have Kamala Harris and Bob Casey's extreme liberal economic policies to thank for it. It's the reckless spending in Washington that's pushed inflation through the roof, pushed prices up. It's unleashed trillions of dollars in wasteful federal spending. A lot of that's been in subsidies for solar panels and lithium batteries and EVs. It's pushed anti-energy policies that have driven up cost. Electricity prices are up 35%, fuel prices up 50%, but it's also hurt energy jobs. This administration has supported policies that have blocked economic mobility, the opportunity to get ahead, which is really at the core of the American dream. If you work hard, you get ahead. Your kids do better than you did. And we've showed weakness time and again in the face of Chinese economic warfare under the Biden-Harris-Casey administration. And these have had really tangible results. So these terrible decisions have sent the prices of basic necessities skyrocketing. Overall inflation, since Biden-Harris-Casey have started voting on these policies, has gone up by 20%. Since Biden and Harris took office, gas is up by 40%, groceries up 22%, rent is up almost 23%. So we created a site because Senator Casey's been talking about shrinkflation and greedflation. This site is Bobflation, bobflation.com, and I would just encourage anybody to check this out. What it shows and allows folks to calculate what the impact of these policies have been on their favorite food. If you go to Primanti Brothers, it shows that a price of a sandwich is now 30% higher than it used to be. This horrific economics mismanagement is crushing Pennsylvanians, and in the face of such hardship, you would think public officials would be doing everything they could to lower cost, because 60% of Pennsylvanians are living paycheck to paycheck and they're getting squeezed. So you'd think they'd be doing everything to lower cost and make life affordable again, but you'd be wrong. You'd be wrong. In fact, what public officials are trying to do is raise taxes. They're trying to raise taxes. Look at the recent property tax hike promised by Senator Casey's Democratic friends. A 46.5% property tax increase, the first property tax hike in more than a decade, on top of all these damaging rise in inflation. Inflation is a 20% tax. So this is a 46.5% property tax on top of the 20% rise in taxes you already got, which is called inflation. That means for a working family who owns a home worth $110,000, they're going to pay an extra $180 a year. This is emblematic. The reason I want to talk about it, it's emblematic of the Democrats' approach to government, from the county level up to Bob Casey and Kamala Harris. Inflation's eating up the country's expenses. It's driving a pressure on working families, and they want to raise taxes. Bob Casey and Kamala Harris want to eliminate the 2017 tax cuts, which lowered taxes for working families. These were the Trump tax cuts. They lowered taxes at every level. So for a family that had an income of about $50,000, it lowered taxes by $2,500. That's a lot. But it's even worse than that. Bob Casey's advocating tax breaks through the lifting the SALT tax deduction, tax breaks for wealthy millionaire homeowners in California and New York. This kind of raising taxes and raising inflation is just killing working families. So instead of cutting wasteful spending in government, and there's plenty of it, and pushing pro-growth economic policies that'll bring Pittsburgh back to its former glory, they want to raise taxes. So before I turn things over, I want to just highlight some of the local reporting that you in the media have done on this issue, just to summarize the frustrations of Pennsylvanians. Here's 3 quotes. One from a local college student. Quote, "I guess I'm not living here whenever I graduate," end quote. From a couple that recently moved to Pittsburgh. I think, quote, I think the tax rates are insane here. It's merely made me have second thoughts, to be honest with you, end quote. Another Pittsburgher, quote, people can't eat now. People can't make their bills now. You know gas is going to go up because the winter's right upon us. You got to be kidding me, end quote. So it's not just those folks I mentioned. Today, what you're going to hear from are other Pittsburghers who are paying the price of poor leadership and are fed up with the Democrats' backward policies for creating economic opportunity for everybody. First up is my good friend Joe Rocky, who has done so much for Allegheny County. He's been an incredibly successful business leader here in Allegheny County. He's done so much to get the community back on track, and I can't help but think what he would be doing today if he was our county executive and bringing the kind of leadership we need. Second, I'm going to call on Jazzy Zijukowski. Am I saying that right?
That's fine.
Is that pretty close? It looked hard. I've been practicing it all morning.
Jazz is fine.
Jazz is fine. Thank you. She'll speak on how difficult the last 4 years. I'm going to have Joe first and then you, Jazz. She'll speak on how difficult the last 4 years have been for folks on fixed incomes and why Pennsylvanians are demanding change. And then finally, Chick Carey, who's a Marshall Township tax collector and has been in that job for 20 years, I understand, and 23, and has a lot to talk about in terms of what these taxes are doing to working families. So with that, let me turn it over to Joe, and thank you all so much for being here.
I'm very happy to stand here in support of Dave McCormick. Dave gave a little bit of my background, and all of you in Allegheny County know that I ran for office last year to represent you, to represent people like Jazzy, who is about to get a 46.5% tax increase, while at the same time she gets a 2.5% increase in her Social Security check. If I can just reference the people behind me, I'm sorry, Sarah, the price is wrong. That is not acceptable for Allegheny County, and it's not acceptable that we have allowed Bob Casey to represent us in Washington for all of this time. 18 years in office, and Bob has very little to stand on. He has voted with the Biden-Harris team every single time on all the things that Dave just referenced, to cause inflation in our community, to cause us to move to this far left ideology that the city of Pittsburgh and the county now represent. That is who's representing us. We need in Washington, D.C., an individual who's going to represent Allegheny County residents and the people of Pennsylvania. We need someone who's got a commitment to service. Dave McCormick grew up in Pittsburgh. He went to West Point. He went to Iraq to defend our country and to stand up for all of us. He then built a company here in Western Pennsylvania, creating numerous jobs. Dave doesn't know this, but when I worked at Ernst & Young, Dave kept hiring all the people who worked with me and around me. And I've talked to many of them who worked for Dave, and they all say the same thing about Dave. He's innovative, he's a visionary, and he's an executor. And lastly, he's a great leader. Today is about the leadership flaws that are representing us here in Allegheny County and the state of Pennsylvania. We need leaders who are doing it for the right reason, are going to bring their mind and their intellect to Washington to bring the right results back to Allegheny County and to lead us in the right direction. Dave has the strength to stand up to what is wrong in Washington, to stand up to the far left progressive ideologies that Bob Casey has rubber stamped throughout his entire time in office. We need to send Dave McCormick to Washington. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. It's a pleasure to be a Shaler Township resident. I've been here 66 years. I was only 20 years of age when I built this house. And over the period of the years, those taxes keep going up and up and up. And most of us on this street, our children went to St. Mary's, and then afterwards they went to North Catholic, Central Catholic, and Shady Side Academy. 85% of them, the other 15 went through the public school system. But I'm here today for us seniors. This entire street, we were just either newlyweds when I wasn't married when I came on, but the other ones were. We're seniors. Our children now are seniors. So whatever we do in the future, it is paving the way for our grandchildren and great-grandchildren. We need Dave McCormick desperately. As someone who has worked her whole life in the banking industry and doing taxes, I can see how the seniors are trying desperately to live off of a simple fixed income, either their pensions or their Social Security. We may get an increase in Social Security, but you can bet your bottom dollar that Medicare is going up. And it's not just me, it's everybody throughout the country. Seniors are having a hard time. And remember, higher taxes always mean higher prices. I wonder if our executives, like Sarah and her buddies on the executive board, sit down and make a budget. Do they know what a budget is? I have to do it every month and make sure the two incomes I have meet my expenses. Do they do that? I don't think. We have to have Bob Casey out and more educational people that know how to make budgets and know what it is for the financial aspect of the future for our kids and our grandkids. I can't sit quietly away, as you can see, for the last 4 years. And I pray desperately every day for Dave McCormick to go into the Senate, that we pick up extra Senate seats, and that we can keep our Republican representatives in the House or gain seats in the House and get Donald Trump in the White House. Maybe we will be able then to get somebody with a good business head. My dad was a businessman, and I've seen him night after night during tax season. He would take days off of work to do nothing else but taxes and make budgets so he could meet his payroll. He was a small businessman. We have small businessman that lives on this street. And it is terrible, the pricing. And I think the Democrats on these television ads, that's all they do is fear tactics. And they get to the weakest seniors. And they're the ones that basically take all this garbage in mentally. They can't think for themselves of what is the best for the individuals and the country. And we have to think of individuals in the country. And I think David McCormick is the guy for us. And we must get him in the Senate. God bless you.
Thank you all. Thank you again all for being here. Joe, thank you. Jazz, thank you. Chick, thank you for your remarks and just putting the challenge in front of us in perspective. Thank you all for coming today. Listen, I'm a seventh generation Pennsylvanian. I was born in Washington County. My dad was from Indiana County. My mom's from Jefferson County. I grew up in Bloomsburg in a small rural town where we had one major employer, which was the McGee Carpet Mill. It employed a couple thousand people, and it now employs a couple hundred people. And I've been blessed. I went to West Point. I served in Iraq in the 82nd Airborne Division. I had an opportunity to help build a great business here in Pittsburgh called Free Markets as a CEO eventually, and I ran another great business. So I know what it's like to create jobs. I know how hard it is to do that. I know how much government can get in the way. And I know every day across this campaign trail how these devastating policies are hurting working families and small business owners across Pennsylvania. These skyrocketing prices are making it difficult to make ends meet, difficult for businesses, difficult for families. And the government's out of control. And the policies of Biden, Harris, and Casey at the national level are destroying local communities because of the skyrocketing prices. And we see it happening right here in Allegheny County with local officials and these tax increases. So the thing I learned in 25 years in business is the best thing you can do is have government have a small footprint. Get out of the way. Let businesses prosper. Let people spend their money. The people are much more capable of spending their money than the government is. When elected to the Senate, I promised to fight to make sure we get prices back under control, that we unlock our energy sector, which is the engine for growth across our great Commonwealth, particularly here in Pennsylvania, to reduce the burden of regulation, which is standing in the way of small businesses, and to make sure that we protect Social Security and Medicare for our seniors. But more than that, get rid of this horrible inflation, which is a tax that's hurting everybody, but particularly our seniors, and particularly those working families living paycheck to paycheck. All these things are about policies, but more than that, they're about leadership. And so I'm running for the Senate because, as Jazz said, it's not about us. It's not about Joe, it's not about Jazz, it's not about Chick, it's not about me. It's about our children, our children's children. We're trying to ensure the America we leave for them has every bit of opportunity that it had for all of us here. And that's what this race is about. It truly is the most important election of our lifetimes, because the choice is so stark between common sense policies and leadership and strength, and extreme liberal policies and weakness and failure. Thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for all of you for participating. Thank you.